Alrighty, folks, it is time for the fourth annual Revolution World Championship. Little bit of a scuffed intro here, just kind of the graphic of the World Championship logo, but I wanted to just jump into deck lists as soon as possible. Now, as of recording, some of the matches have already been played, but I have the bracket unchanged with all of the players as everything was when the pairings were first posted last night. So, maintaining the mystery of how these early matches have gone for one or two matchups in particular, just to try and get the most intrigue here that you could possibly imagine. So before we dive into all of this, as always, there is the link in the description to the Discord server. If you want to jump into Revolution, follow along the World Championship more directly, then you can join the Revolution Discord server. And of course, as of recording, it is the final day for deck submissions to Grand Prix Halls of Valor, our 1v1 plane chase special tournament. So if you would like to join in that, there is also a little bit more time to jump into that. If you're curious about all of that, should be an info card on the screen right now pointing you towards my 3-video series, kind of going through how we learned about plane chase, all of the plane cards, and then talking about deck building with those plane cards, just sort of help prime you for getting into that in particular. In addition, while normally we would have a bunch of deck building links in the description to go along with the Discord link, this time the description will have links to 3 competitors' YouTube channels, those being Ricky Rister, Provocative, and Caillou102. Now, all 3 of these members of the community have made YouTube content before. Not all of them have made videos specifically running through, commentary on their perspectives for their matches, but I know all 3 of them have expressed some interest in doing so to provide their perspectives on their runs through the tournament. So if you're interested in any of that, links to all 3 of their channels are in the description, and of course we'll get to go through all 3 of their decks, as well as the other 13 competitors' decks as we go through all of this. So there are 16 competitors who qualified for the 4th annual Revolution World Championship over the last year, whether that be through winning a GP, performing well in a GP where the winner had already qualified for Worlds, performing well in a league season, or in the case of Caillou102, being the Revolution World Champion from last year. Lots of really skilled players who fought for a seat at this table and are absolutely getting their chance to kind of prove that they are world champion material. We got some fun decks here, some off the wall strategies, folks just trying to get creative and see if they can take the crown with something that really feels like it's appropriate to them. So we're going to dive in here, going top down from match 1, which is Philippe Sander versus Drake. Philippe Sander, our first ever player to go 2 wins in a row, 2 GPs back-to-back over the last 2 months, as well as winning the December GP with the Eternal season. Philippe has had an astonishing showing in the last few months with a graveyard, mid-range control strategies. So naturally, they're here on a Jeskai aggro tempo, get amped strategy. Very, very different kind of strategy for us to be seeing them bring, but this is one that I think is very well positioned, specifically because Philippe, with their amazing performance over the last few months, has secured top seed in this tournament. Now, the way that play draw works in every one of these matches is that it is going to be determined by players' seeds, by how well they specifically performed over these last few months. So Philippe is top seed with 3 successful GP runs. That is going to put them getting to choose play or draw in every single matchup for the entire scope of this tournament. As a result, Philippe can always choose to be on the play with their aggressive tempo deck, and that just puts them in a very, very secure position. So Philippe set up to kind of get to leverage that play draw advantage of always having the choice to be on the play, so that they can just kind of maintain momentum and always start each match out the gate swinging. So 4 copies of Fervent Sensation and 2 Ignited Soul start off their curve, backed up by 4 Breakbot and 3 Savvy Smith, and then finally 4 Yeji topping their creature curve. Other permanents in the deck include the 4 of Lightspeed Launcher, big hitting spell that is just going to get to kind of push some extra card advantage, make it more awkward to block. Launcher really is just one of the most fundamentally powerful cards for these like blue-red tempo spell slingery, uh, try and push a lot of damage strategy decks. And it's really such a shame that Lightspeed Launcher has really only just been catching on and taking off in these sunset months of Hyperpop. But it is really getting to run the circuit this month. And especially here with all of this, Launcher is just kind of gonna be the like big winner for like making this deck work, in practice. Just keeping momentum up, keeping card flow up. Coupled with a solid suite of instants and sorceries, 1 copy of Momentous Charge, 4 Get Your Wish, 2 Igneous Visions, 3 Industrialize, 2 Firebolt, 2 Shockwave Purge, 2 Ragtag Squad, and 1 Real Virtuality. Couple funky things here. Get Your Wish can enable Shockwave Purge to just always be hard removal, even if you aren't searching up the Shockwave Purge, even if it's just in your hand, as long as you have 2 colors of permanence, which is achieved with Lightspeed Launcher, Ignited Soul, or Breakbot just on their lonesome. Then Get Your Wish for Shockwave Purge can guarantee that you get to pick off any problematic permanent on the board and potentially generate a bit of additional value with Lightspeed Launcher or with Breakbot. Get Your Wish also very good with Real Virtuality if you have Ignited Soul as your way to get a black permanent in play, and then you just need Jeskai. You could have like Lightspeed Launcher, Ignited Soul, and Yeji in play. And then Get Your Wish can go find Real Virtuality and cast it for free. Real Virtuality is going to get to take that extra turn if you can attack with 3 or more creatures and cast 2 or more spells. And if you're casting Get Your Wish to get Virtuality for free, then you just have to attack with 3 creatures to get that extra turn. And that takes this kind of mediocre draw spell into something far more potent. I'm not sure how reliable that'll be. I'm inclined to say pretty unlikely to be that important, but is something that can come up. And it is only a 1 of, so it is something that you can just kind of find with Get Your Wish when it is something you're really angling for. 22 lands here with a bunch of Sound Veins, 2 Rattling and 2 Glassy Sound Vein, going to help with fixing the colors early. Glassy can cast Ignited Soul. Rattling can notably cast Ignited Soul as well, because you can just make black mana. So these are always going to be able to cast Ignited Soul on one. But Glassy is a little awkward because the 4 of Effervescensation is just not going to be super castable off of Glassy's Sound Vein. 1 Nascent Light Vein, 4 Primal Fissure, 4 Gleaming Hot Springs, 4 Mountains to make the Hot Springs more reliable, 2 Island, 1 Plains, and 2 Redeveloped Cityscape. We also have a very complex sideboard here, as Philippe is known to be pretty comfortable bringing a more dynamic sideboard. We have 1 Looming Psyhawk, 2 Light Vein Arrow, 2 Refract, 1 Divine Mishap, 1 Cloud9, opening up the door for a teensy little weather package, I think. No weathers. Interesting. So just kind of, maybe you can acclimate to just put a counter on something, but I think this might just be, trying to get like 1 mana enchantment removal, which is wise. Enchantments are going to be something we'll see a lot of here, and there are a couple indestructible enchantments with a couple gods running around, so Cloud9 does pick those off pretty effectively. We got 1 more Shockwave Purge, 1 Boiling Storm here. Another Real Virtuality if needed, a God Divided to pick off a bunch of artifacts, 2 Soul Guide Lanterns, and 2 Light Vein Purifiers. So this is a really, really sweet deck. I know folks had expected Philippe to maybe try and be on the like black-green graveyard ramp kinds of shenanigans that they've been on for a lot of the months that they've had really successful results. But this one is also a strategy that a few folks have been keenly aware of Philippe tinkering with for a while. And Philippe, I believe, has expressly said they wanted to try and push Hyperpop to its limits in its final month in rotation, and I'm really excited to see how they perform here. They're up against Drake, our first ever world champion for Revolution, bringing back something that for folks familiar with their original world champion run should be pretty familiar, which is Jund Ramp. So we have 4 copies of Seeker of New Horizon and 1 Menelaya Beloved Lyrist here on the early creature curve, and then otherwise it jumps up to a bunch of 6-drops with 3 Warden of Tremors and 4 Skotha, Titan of Eternal Dark. They also have 1 Vasilisa Helping Hand, 4 Ominous Slaughter, and 4 Root Fossil. making up the permanents in their deck, as well as or non-land permanents in their deck, as well as 2 Maim, 1 Thunderous Avalanche, 4 Harvest Time, 3 Dissect Intel, 3 Burgeoning Neighborhood, and 1 Chronicle of Extinction. I'm a little dubious of this particular suite of spells. I think Seeker of New Horizons does track with the relative abundance of basics. You're on 25 lands here, and only 6 of those are non-basics, with 4 Primal Fissure, 1 Cityscape, and 1 Looming Skyscrapers. So Seeker does get a lot of momentum there just from being able to have that additional ramp to rough it, to rush it up higher on the stat line. Thanks to Root Fossil putting extra lands in play and Burgeoning Neighborhood putting extra lands into play, and even like Warden of Tremors, Skotha can both help get lands into play as well. So Seeker can be a solid piece to apply some pressure there, and the Aura Blessing can also be relevant at certain points, depending on when you deem it necessary. It does feel a little incongruent with the otherwise, going over the top strategy of just playing these big 6 drops. There is a little bit of incongruence. Like Skotha can do some fun things here with like looping Ominous Slaughter to just force a sacrifice every turn, and then Skotha just gets it back. But I'm a little hesitant to say that is enough for Skotha between just the Seekers, the Omens, the Root Fossils, and like 5 fetches. It feels like Skotha is maybe not the most important thing in this deck, so it's awkward that there's a playset of them. Warden of Tremors is a card that has just proven to be very, very dangerous if left unchecked. It draws you potentially 6 cards the turn that you play it by exiling the top 3 cards of your library twice as you play your 2 additional lands the turn you play it. And then there on out, it can draw you up to 9 cards a turn, and then also discount your first spell for red and a green each turn. And notably, that does discount generic mana costs as well, so that could be a free Menelaya. It could be like paying half of Burgeoning Neighborhood, could pay for most of the cost of surfacing Root Fossil. So there are some things to like here. I think one of my biggest concerns with this strategy is that there are the bones of the like more graveyard oriented plan here, with Skotha, with Root Fossil, with Harvest Time and Chronicle of Extinction, but it feels a little more unfocused. I don't know if the 4 Harvest Time is really necessary, but it could be nice just to try and help get, because you need double red for Warden of Tremors, and you only have 3 mountains and 5 fetches to go get that. So 8 red sources for Warden of Tremors. It's not impossible to have that, but with no mana dorks, it is something that you do have to be mindful of as the Warden of Tremors player, that you're on 3 Warden of Tremors as a double red card in an otherwise like exclusively black-green main deck. So that can be pretty awkward. So Harvest Time and Burgeoning Neighborhood can help with that. And Burgeoning Neighborhood being able to get 2 basics is nice, but it can also go find your 1 Looming Skyscrapers if you just need some extra ways to spend your mana. And the nice thing about Looming Skyscrapers being one of the enemy pledge duels is it can pledge to any clique enchantment, because the 2 cliques that are not black are in green. So this can really help you get any mana outlet that you could possibly want if you just have excess mana to spend, whether that is the Surveil clique, making 2/2s with Decayed, making treasures, tapping down opposing creatures, or tapping your own to put counters on them, or just giving one of your creatures +2/+2. So Skyscrapers is a nice include, especially with these Burgeoning Neighborhoods. I'm just a little dubious of how the like Harvest Times can factor in, and how some of the like components of this deck feel a little incongruent. Like Menelaya seems pretty unreliable. Oftentimes, she is just a 2 mana 2/2 in the worst case scenario. But it feels a lot weaker when you don't have that many things lower on the curve for her to support. So that can be kind of awkward. But moving on to the sideboard, we do have another Menelaya here, 1 of Solis Syndicate Pariah, 2 more Vasilisa Helping Hand, 2 more Maim, 2 more Thunderous Avalanche, 1 Terminal Impact, 1 Dissect Intel, 1 Forget Their Names, 2 Chronicle of Extinction, 1 A God Divided, and 1 Soul Guide Lantern. I feel like Chronicle of Extinction is a card, the -2/-2 is not amazing, specifically into green Stompy, and Stompy was the deck that I know a lot of people were worried about going into this tournament, and that -2/-2 mode is really rough for trying to deal with Stompy because their threats just outscale Chronicles so quickly. But on that same pace, I can't help but wonder, because you are a ramp deck that is just trying to rush up a bunch of mana, like you are on Burgeoning Neighborhood, that is how dedicated to ramping you are. I really can't help but wonder, like, the flashback mode on Chronicle of Extinction is very good against Green Stompy. You know, even just giving things -6/-6, that's going to pick off the Green Stompy board almost always. And the other modes do still have some relevance against Green Stompy. You know, take out their hand to try and limit their ability to develop further if you're coming up the board. You know, not necessarily a card you'd board in against Stompy for sure, but I almost feel like for Chronicles in the 75 feels like mandatory for decks trying to rush up this mana. So it's curious to see only 3. Terminal Impact is another one that I know a lot of folks are singing its praises, and very rightfully so. This is such a nightmare to deal with for the opponent. Just gets to be the exact amount of damage you need it to be, can be a full board clear if you have 7 or more mana to spend on it. Not something that blue decks can ever interact with. So only the 1 terminal impact in the 75 is a little shocking to me, but the only 3 mountains makes it a little easier to understand at the very least. So that is Drake's deck list. Moving on to Ricky Rister, who again is one of our players who is going to be able to share their perspective. I'm not sure 100% if they're going to be recording, but their Discord, their YouTube channel is in the description below, beyond the Discord link. So they are on their old reliable 4-color consonants deck. We have seen them jam a fair bit over the last 2 years since Hyperpop joined the field. They took 2nd place in Worlds last year with 4-color consonant, with consonants back then, though consonants has changed a lot and been reshaped a lot, and 4-color consonants has become a meme at this point because this is actually Abzan consonants. Built around grand consonants, the titular spell itself, for triple green 2 and 2 mana of non-green colors that are different from each other, to look at the top 7 cards of your library, put an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, and or planeswalker from among them onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom in a random order. Really does want a diversity of permanent types, but no artifacts in the recent build that Ricky has been jamming here. We have 4 Gone Pickin' as the primary enchantment that you can get here, but can also go and find Star-Studded Sagittar as an enchantment creature. Sagittar is one of the creatures, coupled with Sunsoaker, Alrontan Visionary, Unflinching Titan, Archon of Condemnation, and Skotha. Can all get in there. I know Ricky was looking at trying to cut out Skotha in the wake of the Skotha change at the start of the month, but decided they did want to still try 1 copy, and I do think it is actually pretty good in this deck still, thanks to just, you know, they're on the full 8 fetches of Cityscapes plus Fishers. They have Alrontan Visionary and Unflinching Titan, which both kind of can fill the graveyard, care about the graveyard in some capacity. Gone Pickin' can wind up getting removed in some points, at which point Skotha can just bring Gone Pickin' back to have more pinpoint removal. And then, you know, you just have like the 8 2-drop ramps, ramp sources, followed by the 7 3-drop ramp creatures. And any of those can wind up dead over the course of the game, then just get brought back with Skotha for more value over time. Archon of Condemnation, just a brutal 5-drop to get put down. Gets to bless a creature to put Confined to Eternity on it, prevent it from attacking, blocking, or activating its abilities, and then is going to drain its controller for 1 life at their upkeep each turn moving forward. And then Archon lets you sacrifice creatures to bless more of your opponent's creatures to try and just really lock them out and kill them with Death by 1,000 Cuts, which also buys you time to just hit them in the face for 4 over and over. And there is a nice little internal synergy here with Archon and Skotha of being able to sacrifice your mana dorks once they stop being supremely relevant, and then use Skotha to keep getting those mana dorks back so you can continue sacrificing them to Archon of Condemnation. Planeswalker Suite is the key here, with 2 copies each of Sinido Voidsinger, Vasilisa Helping Hand, and Illustrious Sheng Fa. And joining this suite is 1 copy of Glitch Chaos Redeemed, another of this prismatic mana spells. Spend 3 different colors of mana and 2 for a 4 loyalty planeswalker with +2 to make up to 1 target creature a 5/5 until your next turn. And when it deals combat damage to a player this turn, draw a card. -3 to make 3 1/1 white flying elemental bird creature tokens with flying and scry 3, or -10 to add 2 of each color and draw 10 cards. Glitch got a major buff at the start of the March patch. And has not seen a ton of play, but what play it has seen, it has looked pretty remarkable. So getting a good chance to get Glitch another chance in the spotlight here with Grand Consonance in its final month of competitive play. Ricky's sideboard here, 2 copies of Club Promoter, 3 Hungry Blob, 3 Looming Psyhawk, 3 Maim, 2 The Fall of Trax, and 2 Sensor Tablet. Sensor Tablet's an interesting choice for Graveyard Hate to be seeing here. Not necessarily as high impact Graveyard Hate as say Soul Guide Lantern, but does have the potential to draw cards while hating things out of the graveyard. So perhaps it is a matter of conceding that, getting rid of a whole graveyard is not something that Ricky is going to be able to care about doing most cases. But Sensor Tablet being able to provide additional card advantage can help them outpace those graveyard decks in terms of value. So curious to see how the Sensor Tablet holds up in place of Soul Guide Lantern here. And then Ricky is up against Cool Beans, who qualified April of last year as Worlds was running. The first qualifying tournament for Worlds was Grand Prix Blind Eternities, a Pauper tournament where many players brought the now banned in Pauper Diabolical Minion, and Cool Beans identified that Mono Red was really good against Diabolical Minion and Mono Black strategies. Despite Diabolical Minion gaining its controller life. And sure enough, Cool Beans took down that tournament after beating out a bunch of mono black decks and black adjacent decks to get into that top cut, and through that top cut run, qualifying Cool Beans for this tournament. And Cool Beans is playing another aggressive deck, this time playing the green stompy decks that have been popularized over the last few months by Provocative, but bringing a red twist here with 5 Mountains and 5 Temple of Origins alongside 4 Primal Fisher and only 9 Forests. 4 Seeker of New Horizons and 4 Aspiring Anarchist are now joined by 4 Calamity Cat. 2-drop slots are 4 Growing Gecko, 4 Menelea, and then another newcomer of 4 Spikemane Lion. And then no 3-drops on the curve, just jumping right up to 3 Yen Slopeskidder and 2 Nessian Scout Captain on the 4-drop slot on the curve. 5 instants between 4 Momentous Charge and 1 Ensconce, and then 4 sorceries with 4 Abominable Avalanche. I'm really intrigued to see how this deck performs. I think this is a really interesting twist on the green tempo strategies that have been very popular as of late. I think Momentous Charge, Abominable Avalanche, and Calamity Cat are really making the most out of the red splash here. I'm a little more apprehensive about Spikemane Lion, but I think the Spikemane Cloak can be very powerful in the right scenarios, and as long as it just cares about the enchanted creature being the target of a spell or ability, just gets to grow it and push damage to the opponent. And we do see that there are enough unique triggers for Spikemane Cloak to care about with Aspiring Anarchist, with Calamity Cat, with Growing Gecko. I guess Growing Gecko doesn't actually target on its front side. Doesn't target with the other side, actually. Menelea does target, though, on its enter trigger. Yen Slopeskidder targets on its trigger, and then you've got the Momentous Charges as well, and an Ensconce in the main to kind of just push damage with the Spikemane Cloak. And then Spikemane Lion is just a 2-mana 3/3 that can get that cloak when it dies, so nice bit of aggressive value with some staying power long-term there. Sideboard is 3 copies of Hardy Rough Rider, 3 Ensconce, 4 Thunderous Avalanche, 3 Conscript, and 2 Soul Guide Lantern. Nice thing to see here is the Conscript especially good at kind of clearing the way against some of these aggro mirrors, but also can just be used to give your own creatures haste in a pinch. You could use Conscript alongside the Spikemane Cloak to get a trigger off the Spikemane Cloak while giving the creature its on haste, and giving another creature you control haste as well, or you can use it to give one of your creatures haste while stealing an opposing attacker and untapping it. Can just be very good for helping to apply additional pressure, and particularly strong against these creature-focused decks. Match 3 is Platy People versus Laurel, and Platy People, as I understand it, is just on Philippe Sanner's uh, uh, GP Patrazia winning strategy of Black Green Chronicles. So plenty of people qualifying from Grand Prix Magdalena Bay um, is Hyperpop's designer. So I'm kind of surprised that Platy didn't want to just try and jam some spicy Hyperpop strategy here. But lots going on for some of these world's competitors. Sometimes you just got to take what is a known successful deck. And what I will admit is that even though the most powerful play patterns of this Green Black Chronicles deck have been very much hindered. Skotha no longer untapping lands, Cryptolabe no longer exiling your entire hand and ramping your entire hand, Chronicle of Awakening no longer being able to hit basic lands. Even with some of these changes, I think this deck is still very, very scary. I'm a little confused by the inclusion of Temple of Malady in particular because it just really does not mesh with Vorpal Titan. Like that is the one discernible change I can spot is that these Temple of Maladies were added in over some of the basic lands, I think. So it is a little unusual to see that in particular. And I believe the Jack Monster Mentor might be new. But there's still some fun to be had here. Mana Harvesters and Aurontin Visionary jumping up to Skotha, Titan of Eternal Dark, and Vorpal Titan, or the one of Vasilis, the Helping Hand, and Czar of the Eternal Cycle. Full playsets of Chronicle of Extinction and Chronicle of Awakening, full playsets of Root Fossil and Cryptolabe, and then 3 Archaic Obelisk to kind of round things out. If you've tuned into the last few GP finals, you're familiar with this deck. You know what this deck can do. It's not as potent anymore. Again, Skotha is a notable change here. Chronicle of Awakening is not as game-ending. Cryptolabe is not as all-powerful for generating mana for all of your spells, but there is still a lot to love about this deck. And then moving on to the sideboard, we have one each of Club Promoter Hungry Blob, Vorpal Titan, and Jack Monster Mentor, as well as 2 Out with the Old, 4 Dissect Intel, 3 Final Fate, and 2 Soul Guide Lantern. So pretty old reliable. Curious to see how it will hold up with the April changes in mind. And then Platy is up against Laurel. Laurel, who qualified from Grand Prix 2 Gay through a pretty solid performance, making it to the top cut. I believe qualifying through other players being the champion of that tournament. But don't take that to mean that Laurel does not deserve to be here. Laurel, the major innovator of the Advisors deck that was rocking the format for a little while back in Cyberos season. Here with the Tale of 22 Titans on a Golems deck, a 4-colorless Golems deck. So I mentioned there is some spice in this field, and here is the spice in full force. We have 4 Redeveloped Cityscape, 4 Primal Fissure to get 4 forests, 2 islands, 2 swamps, 1 mountain, 1 wastes, as well as 4 Nascent Light Vein and 4 Deep Life Cavern to kind of try and make things a little bit smoother here. So, Herald of Awakening and Slumbering Grove are the 1-drop slots. Herald going to kind of just be a bit of looting, kind of putting things in the graveyard, and then Slumbering Grove capable of helping find additional basic lands, get the colors that you need. Almost never going to be spell charged. It feels like it's very hard for this deck to spend 8 mana, but it is entirely feasible theoretically to have this deck get to 8 mana. So very, very possible that Slumbering Grove animates, and then it's a very scary body if it ever does so. And it's not one that I think opponents would be really inclined to want to remove at any point. So can kind of scoot under the radar there. And then if you get the Slumbering Grove in play, then Herald of Awakening just becomes a full cantrip. 2/2 Defender, this is almost never going to be able to attack without Defender. There is only the Slumbering Grove for Ruins in the deck, but is just a nice little thing that it has going on. 4 Unspeaking Titan and 1 Agent of Deception for the 2-drops here. This is in part for an Ozon's Blessing package. Often just going to be getting the Unspeaking Titan to tap down an opposing creature, give your golems ward. Ozon's Blessing with Unspeaking Titan is just such a strong combination in general. And then you also get 1 Agent of Deception, so Ozon's Blessing means you're always threatening the Agent of Deception regardless of whether or not it's in your hand, which can be pretty nice. 4 copies of Unflinching Titan and Unyielding Titan. are going to provide a bit more of the golem synergies. All of these can pay 3 tap to make a white golem and can't attack or block unless you control 3 or more. Unspeaking Titan giving your golems ward 1 and tapping a creature and putting a stun counter on it with enter or attack. Unflinching Titan giving your golems trample and letting you surveil 1 on enter or attack, getting a land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped afterwards. And then Unyielding Titan giving your golems menace, and then stripping cards from your opponent's hand or graveyard on enter and attack there. And then speaking of Titans, we got 2 copies of Skotha here. Very solid with the Herald of Awakening package, good with Unspeaking Titans that might die. Agent Deception, maybe not so much, but Unflinching Titan can get brought back with Skotha as well. And then moving on to the sorceries, which is another section that is like some bit of funkiness here. 4 copies of Extraction Mission, which is part of why we have the one of Mountain here in the land base. Mission helping to bring back some of the creatures that die over time. You can pay blue to give this flash, which the deck is very capable of doing. And then if you're paying red, you get to make a token copy that is untapped of the creature that you're getting back tapped, and then sacrificing at the end of combat, at the end of the next combat. So Extraction Mission, very solid with bringing back these Titans, especially if you can make a token copy and keep that token around to your next turn by flashing it in. Getting to flash in Extraction Mission for Unyielding Titan, making a token copy on your opponent's draw step, take 2 cards from their hand, is so profoundly brutal. And I'm really eager to see if Laurel gets to pull that off at some point. Something I'm really nervously excited about here. And then finally, 3 Alien Pledge, just another really weird, funky one here, is the reason for the inclusion of the one of Wastes. Actually going to be harder to manage than the red for Extraction Mission here, because the Mountain can be sort of attained through Nascent Lightbane, entering and tapping for red, but the same cannot be said for Colorless Mana, which is only attained from the one of Wastes. Although, of course, 8 fetches can try and help find the Colorless Mana when you need it. And then it's going to make a token copy of target creature you control, except it is a 1/1. And then when you do so, you pay for and choose any number. You can pay an additional colorless to make it a copy of a different target creature. That's never going to be attainable because there's only 1 colorless source in the deck. Pay a white to gain life equal to the number of creatures you control. That's almost never attainable because Nascent Lightbane is the only white source. And so realistically, this is often just 2 mana, clone a creature, except it's a 1/1, or you can pay an additional black to make each player sacrifice a creature afterwards. So that is the main deck, and then the sideboard here, we have 1 Spry Illuminator. It is a golem, which is pretty funny, but it is also artifact or enchantment removal for non-creature artifacts or any enchantment off of Ozon's Blessing, which is pretty nice as well. 2 more copies of Skotha if needed for more grindy matchups maybe. 4 copies of Thunderous Avalanche, 2 copies of Chronicle of Extinction, 4 Soul Guide Lanterns, and 2 The Shattered Throne, which I know Laurel has been very fond of as of late. And I think with this deck not having too high of a curve, Shattered Throne seems really strong here. Especially with the Extraction Mission and Skotha plan here. I think Shattered Throne seems really, really spicy. So moving on, we have Provocative versus Itai Ukul forming the last match in the upper half of the upper bracket. Provocative here on mono green Stompy, a deck we all knew they would be on here, qualifying from our most recent tournament in GP Petrasia as the runner-up, getting that qualifier from Philippe being the winner of that tournament and already having qualified. But Provocative has been absolutely on the grind with this mono green Stompy deck as of late, and has really, really fought for their inclusion here. A couple really interesting changes to the deck that they've been running. Vasilisa is just fully in the sideboard. We know that we've seen Vasilisa show up in the main board in some copies earlier tournaments, but it has been phased out into the sideboard fully. The particular changes here are 3 copies of Sleeper Insurgent in the main, replacing the prior existing copies of Zeno. This is just a much bigger body for a lower cost, very good with Aspiring Anarchist. There's a lot of things that can target it for your spells and abilities to untap it and make it be capable of attacking more. Aspiring Anarchist targeting it means it always untaps. Menelea can untap it and put a counter on it. Skull and Nyxweaver does not target, so it is not going to be eligible to untap the Sleeper Insurgent. but you can grassroots campaigners, get either of the clicks that buffs your creatures, whether it is tapping an untapped creature and putting a counter on it. A little awkward with Sleeper Insurgent, but could be done. Realistically, getting the +2/+2 clique and getting to give your Sleeper Insurgent, make it a 6/5 and untap it is pretty good. Yen Slopeskidder untaps it. So lots of stuff to sort of synergize with that in the main deck. Pushing a 3-drop to a 2-drop also just seems pretty clean here because Skull and Nyxweaver and Grassroots Campaigners are just such deadly 3-drops on their own, and Xeno was really more of a like grindy card that the deck really didn't have the time to afford grinding for necessarily. One of the things I have found when playtesting against this deck in prior iterations is this deck is very capable of just scary top decks turn after turn. No matter what comes down, because you've got Seeker, which can just scale out of control early, Growing Gecko, which can just flip if left unchecked in an instant, and then it's a 6/5 for 2 with Trample that's just going to get to buff up your creatures. Lots of things that just get out of control if you aren't ready to hold them back. And then the sideboard, pretty simplistic. 4 copies of Hardy Rough Rider, 3 Facilis a Helping Hand, 4 Thunderous Avalanche, and then Hostile Evolution here instead of the usual Ensconce here. So as I understand it, Hostile Evolution is in part a concession to Provocative's concerns about control's prevalence within the tournament. And I think this is actually a really heads-up inclusion. So Hostile Evolution does not buff up your creature with a +1/+1 counter like Ensconce does, but does give a hexproof counter to that creature. And at your next end step, you remove a counter from that creature. Does not have to be the hexproof counter. So if you have, say, a Vigilance counter from a Skull and Nyxweaver, you can remove that Vigilance counter and have it keep hexproof permanently. If you give it a +1/+1 counter from Yen Slopeskidder or from Menelea, or it's a Seeker of New Horizons that just naturally got them on their own, or it's a counter from your transformed Growing Gecko, those are all ways that you can generate counters that you can remove to preserve the hexproof permanently on that creature, and then that just makes something a huge nightmare for these control decks to have to deal with. So very excited to see how Provocative performs. Another one of the players who may have some prospective matches to show for you and will be in the description below. Up against Itai Ukul, who won our first tournament of this year, GP Mishiro Town, with Sultai Surface, the only black-green based graveyard deck in the last 4 months to win and not be in the hands of Philippe Sanner. Playing Coordinating with Kaineos. It is an Abzan enchantment mid-range deck. 4 copies of Contest Coordinator, 3 Menelea for the 2-drop slot, 3 Kaineos Bladebound at 3 mana, 2 Chosen of Heliod at 4, 3 Archon of Condemnation at 5, and 2 Skotha Titan of Eternal Dark at 6, as well as 3 Cassia the Carefree, 4 Brief Stop, 4 Finax's Touch, 4 Ominous Slaughter, and 4 Gone Pickin'. There are some very interesting things to like about this deck, and there are some things to have some concerns about. Contest Coordinator, lots of things for it to find. Menelea is an eligible hit, Chosen of Heliod's an eligible hit, Skotha is an eligible hit, Cassia, and then all of the Omens and the Finax's Touches are eligible hits as well for Contest Coordinator, as well as, of course, the 4 copies of Plains in the land base. So that's a decent number of hits for Contest Coordinator, and then Kaineos also has a lot of consistency. Can go find Menelea, can find Chosen of Heliod, Archon of Condemnation, can find any of these enchantments. And Heliod just getting to trigger on enter or attack. Itai's not the only player on Kaineos in this field, and folks are really waking up to just how good of a card Kaineos is over the last few months. And it's really, really exciting to see people bringing Kaineos more and more. Chosen of Heliod, really good at locking down creature combat or punching through a gummed up board, depending on what you need it to do. Archon of Condemnation, very effective at just locking down your opposing creatures, as we talked about earlier with Ricky's deck. Skotha, we've seen a couple times now. The Skotha change seems to be very popular for making sure Skotha still sees a lot of play without being as egregious as it was before. And of course, this is another deck where Skotha just has a lot to get back. Get back a Contest Coordinator, a Menelea, any of these enchantments. Lots to like there. Cassia the Carefree, also very solid. You can have Cassia have the permanent entering -2 to double up an enter trigger, and then have Cassia -2 lead into Archon of Condemnation to try and bless multiple opposing creatures, can Chosen of Heliod after Cassia to get multiple blessings there, get multiple cards off of Kaineos or Contest Coordinator, get multiple counters off of Menelea, multiple things back with Skotha, and it's permanent entering this turn, so you can also get value off of any of your enchantments as they all have enter triggers as well. -1 to make a 1/1 bird with flying or a 2/2 cat is very nice. -3 to just buff up your board is very solid as well. And the wander cost, being able to make sure that Cassia can just keep being used over time, is very useful as well. Skipping over the instants for a second, just to talk about the enchantments. Phoenix's Touch, Ominous Slaughter, Gone Pickin', all proven to be very, very effective tools in the current field. Ominous Slaughter looking like it's going to be decent into this field. There are a couple decks that can generate some tokens to kind of gum up what Omen can eat into, but this is another deck that can do Skotha Ominous Slaughter loops to just try and push some additional pressure here. And then the big question mark here is Brief Stop. A lot of things in this deck have valuable enter triggers, and Brief Stop does have some nice flexibility here, just on the baseline of, protect against an opposing removal spell, get some additional value immediately out of one of your enter triggers, can protect something from a board wipe, get something exiled, and then let it come back at the next end step after the board wipe has resolved. But one of the things that's really scary to me about Brief Stop, and is something I'm eager to see how well it can come up, is specifically the fact that Brief Stop can, with your Phoenix's Touches, or to a lesser degree your Skothas, do draw step discard in a top deck war. This is the kind of deck that really does seem keen on running your opponent out of resources, and as those game states start to develop and opponents run out of things available to them, being able to Brief Stop on your opponent's draw step, flicker Skotha, get back a Phoenix's Touch, and then have your opponent discard a card from Skotha, discard a card from Phoenix's Touch seems particularly heartbreaking to have to deal with if you're on the receiving end of that play pattern. So I'm very interested to see how this deck shapes up as well. Mana base is 4 Sunlit Ruins, 4 Ancient Lightvein, 3 Cityscape, 3 Primal Fissure, 3 Forests, 3 Swamps, and 4 Plains. Sideboard is 3 Survivors of the New World, 1 Skotha, Titan of Eternal Dark, 2 Bring the House Down, 2 Held in Contempt, very fun one to see here, 2 Disestablishmentarianism, 2 The Fall of Trax, and 3 Soul Guide Lantern. I especially like Held in Contempt and Disestablishmentarianism here because they are eligible hits off of both Contest Coordinator and Kaineos. But it is also worth noting, Skotha, as established with the main deck, hit off of Contest Coordinator. Bring the House Down can be hit off of Contest Coordinator. Fall of Trax can be hit off of Kaineos. Soul Guide Lantern hit off of Contest Coordinator. So there's a lot of nice internal synergies here with the sideboard, with really the only card that doesn't get hit by either being Survivors of the New World, which is just such a headache for control decks anyways. So, interested to see how Etai's deck shapes up, but they do have a pretty rough aggressive matchup to get through first. Moving to the second half of our players here with H Squid, qualifying from Awakening in Old-June League, bringing what you seriously expected a non-meme deck from me, with a kind of funky Naya, not quite activated abilities but still activated abilities plush collection deck. So there's not a lot of activated abilities in this deck in the main, in the non-land slots. So you've got 4 Seeker of New Horizons as the only 1-drop in the deck, backed up by 2 Mimicry Elemental, 3 Menelea, 4 Sunsoaker, and 4 Speculative Stockbroker, all in the 2-drop slot. The Mimicry Elemental we will get back to, but Stockbrokers, Sunsoakers generating mana can be additional pressure. Menelea, very good at protecting your board, good with the counters off of Seeker, good with the counters off of Stockbroker. For your 3-drops, you only have the 4 copies of Yeji, and then at 4 you have the 2 copies of Yen Slopeskitter and 1 Charlotte Angel of Refraction. 2 Ozon's Blessing can go find a Menelea at instant speed if needed, or maybe a Mimicry Elemental if that's really what you're angling for. 3 copies of Abominable Avalanche to pick off opposing creatures, push some damage to face, and then get that 3/3 as you spend more mana later on. 4 copies of Plush Collection, which is another one we'll get back to, and then 2 copies of Crumbling Tower round out the non-lands from this deck, as well as 3 plains, 6 forests, 6 mountains, 4 of each fetch land, 1 Nessian Woods, and 1 Titan's Stairs for some creature lands in here as well. So the Mimicry Elemental and the Plush Collection are the big weird points of this deck. Plush Collection can do some funny stuff with Sunsoaker and Speculative Stockbroker, just kind of tapping your creatures for mana abilities. Most of the Chikyu Chaos Reigns cards that care about activated abilities specify non-mana abilities, but that is not true of Plush Collection. And notably, Plush Collection is stellar with Menelaya Beloved Lyrist, because you pay 1 to activate Menelaya, remove a counter from a creature you control to tap it and give it indestructible, and then Plush Collection is going to make you a non-legendary 1/1 Menelaya, which immediately comes in, grants the 2 counters, and can just help snowball your board out of control. With those +1/+1 counters, kind of a fun synergy there. And then Mimicry Elemental, I'm not sure what necessarily this is meant to be doing here. There are the 8 fetches, and Mimicry Elemental can copy like Redeveloped Cityscape to go get 4 basic lands and put 2 to play, 2 to hand. So that can be really nice with Mimicry Elemental, but that feels really clunky in an otherwise pretty like aggressive leaning deck. And then Mimicry Elemental can copy Menelaya's activation to give something double indestructible. Notably, if your opponent responds to a Menelaya activation, you can Mimicry Elemental the Menelaya activation. So you can kind of supersede their removal spell with a new instance of the Menelaya ability without having to remove a counter, but that's not super strong. Similarly, you can do that with Charlotte, Angel of Refraction, which is going to be really brutal at taxing your opponent's spells and just getting in over the top. Hard for your opponent to beat through if you still have cards in hand to discard to it. There are some things I really like about this deck, but some things I do have some question marks around, specifically the Mimicry Elementals and the Ozon's Blessings. But I do think Plush Collection can be really interesting with just these Mana Dorks and the Menelaya. And, you know, Plush Collection can also copy up your Charlottes as well. And then Charlotte in multiples, just your opponent only gets to cast 1 spell each turn effectively at that point. Moving on to the sideboard, we have 2 Looming Psyhawk, 3 Hungry Blob, 2 Charlotte, joining in with the 1 in main, 2 Ozon's Blessing, 2 Thunder's Avalanche, 2 Terminal Impact, and 2 more Crumbling Tower. H-Squid is up against All Who Wander, who is qualifying from Nylon League towards the end of last year, with another Abzan Kaineos deck with Contest Coordinator and Kaineos again here. This time with the Archon of Condemnation and Skotha, but also with a 1 of Farika Snake Twined, bringing Planeswalkers besides Cassia the Carefree, unlike Itai here, with Contest Coordinator being able to get Sinido, Voidsinger, or Illustrious Shang-Fa. Getting 1 of Bring the House Down in the main, far more enchantments here in the main as well. The Phanix's Touches, the Omens of Slaughter, and the Gone Pickens all as 4 elves, but also 4 Planned Obsolescence, 1 Disestablishmentarianism, and 1 Path of Phoenix. I especially like the Planned Obsolescences here with the knowledge that you have these 4, 5, 6 mana permanents that you can be putting into play with Sinido Voidsinger, Archon of Condemnation, Skotha, Illustrious Shang-Fa, and then Planned Obsolescence works so nicely with Shang-Fa, with Skotha. Skotha just brings back Obsolescence and immediately nukes something. Shang-Fa, -1, bring back Planned Obsolescence, nuke something immediately. Just very, very solid synergies there. Then Path of Phoenix, also very nice to get back with either of those big 6 drops there. Same with Disestablishmentarianism. Just some nice internal synergies here. And then 1 Soul Guide Lantern as well as another Silver Bullet to get with Contest Coordinator and loop with your 6 drops here. Mana base is 3 Redeveloped Cityscape, 4 Primal Fissure, 4 Nation Light Vein, 2 Forest, 3 Plains, 4 Swamps, 2 Sunlit Ruins, and 1 Miasmic Cove as a creature land here. Sideboard is 2 Out with the Old, 3 Bring the House Down to couple with the 1 in the main. That is also true of 3 Disestablishmentarianism and 3 Path of Phoenix and 3 Soul Guide Lanterns. And then finally 1 copy of Top of the Charts to kind of just check token decks for good. You just get Top of the Charts in play, and you can just choose the mana value 10,000. And then token decks, it's just all creatures are -1/-1 forever, and token decks just never get to put their 1/1s into play ever again. So lots to like here. I'm very interested to see how All Who Wander performs. That's something I've just been saying about all of these decks, because I really am intrigued to see how these matchups go and how these decks fare in the tournament as a whole. Match 6 has Zangi up against Stasis. Zangi qualifying from Grand Prix Whitecliff as the runner-up to Philippe Sanner in February, bringing their old standby of white-blue control with a couple things changed around. They've been on Shang-Fa for a lot of their runs prior to this, but Shangfa, of course, with the change in March, not as appealing, can't lock out combats, um, has more conditions stapled onto their board wipe ability, so Zangi choosing to adapt and go for 2 copies of Rabora Goliath as an alternate win condition as well. As to Benthelos, just the old reliable standby here. Did also get hurt in the March patch, but Benthelos can do some funky things still by just copying up your enchantments. Still very reliable on that regard. 4 Seafloor Treasures, 2 Turn to Nyx in the main is very exciting to see. 4 Ifara's Judgment, 2 Divine Mishap, 4 Fall of Elantine, and 1 Travel Through the Mystic Seas. So Zangi on 12, I believe, or sorry, no, yeah, Zangi on 12 counterspell, because we got the 2 Turn to Nyx, we've got the 2 Divine Mishap, we've got the 4 Ifara's Judgment, and we've also got 4 Omen of Deception here in the enchantment slot. So that's a lot of things that just kind of fight for the stack. Zangi really wanting to take control of the stack when they can. Enchantments backed up with 4 Seal Away and 4 Gone Pickin'. All of these, of course, can be copied with Benthelos of Land and Sea. And then finally, to bring the house down, to kind of back up Fall of Elantine as more sweepers in the main. Mana base is 4 each of Redeveloped Cityscape, Primal Fissure, Temple of Origins, and 100-Handed Pillars, as well as 7 plains and 2 islands, all as a concession to try and make Fall of Elantine as castable as possible, as reliably as possible. Sideboard is 2 Behemoth of the 5 Rivers, 1 Tyranny of Trax, 2 Walk the Dead's Path, 3 Travel Through the Mystic Sea, 4 The Fall of Trax, and 3 Soul Guide Lantern. A lot of enchantment decks in this field. I think Walk the Dead's Path is going to be very relevant out of the sideboard very often. Also, a lot of decks that are trying to go kind of higher up on the curve. So Fall of Trax we've seen in a couple sideboards. Having the full 4 of here, I got to imagine if you're Zangi, you're pretty happy to have these Fall of Traxes. With just how many people are putting larger permanents into play this GP, or not this GP, this Worlds. So this is kind of their iconic strategy. Zangi does play other non-control decks, has played the Electies, like red-white aggro decks, but especially as of late, this has just been white-blue control with Zangi is just the thing we expect from them, and they perform every time they bring it, so interesting to see how Zangi will fare here in Worlds. Up against a matchup that I know Stasis is a little nervous about because they feel much more comfortable into aggro, and they are on the opposite side of the bracket from a lot of the aggro decks. Bant Builder. There's a bit of a running joke between Stasis and I that I do not think Bant Builder is a good deck, but I do have to break that joke here to acknowledge, no, this is absolutely a legitimately strong deck. I rag on Stasis a lot about this deck because it's not something that I find particularly interesting for me to want to play, but God, is it strong. There are a lot of breakneck play patterns here that can just kind of overwhelm the opponent if they aren't ready to check it. Really helps them go over the top of more aggressive decks, but may have a bit of trouble punching through the slower strategies like the one that they're up against here with Zangi. So, Bant Builder starts off with 4 Star-Studded Sagittar and 2 Mana Harvesters. We have another playset of Kaineos Bladebound here, as well as 4 Builder of Monuments, 3 Survivors of the New World, and 3 Stormscraper of Ketaphos here in the creature slots. 2 copies of Severin Sparkmind in the Planeswalker list, and then 15 enchantments to find off of Kaineos alongside the Stormscrapers and the Star-Studded Sagittars, including 4 Planned Obsolescence, 1 Stasis Chamber, 4 Manifest the Light Veins, 4 Gone Pickin', and 2 The Fall of Trax. So talking about some of these explosive play patterns, we can see Sagittar hitting, or Manifest the Light Veins coming down to make a land tap for 2 mana, then turn 3 casting Severin the Sparkmind, -2 untap all 3 of the permanents that tapped to cast Severin, and then immediately using that mana to tap again and cast another 4-drop like a Survivors of the New World or like a Builder of Monuments to really secure this Planeswalker in place. Really powerful Builder of Monuments package here, attacks and then gets an artifact or enchantment with mana value less than or equal to the number of build counters on Builder, and it gains 1 every time it gets that attack trigger. So can immediately go get Planned Obsolescence and then exile anything mana value 3 or less. Can immediately exile get Stasis Chamber, tap down an opposing creature and keep it locked down. Can immediately get the one of Warpway Rings out of the mana base to go get a fetch that can immediately crack and go find one of your basics.
Granted, get it tapped, but that's still very effective to get Builder and then turn that into a land through the roundabout inclusion of Warpway Rings. And then as you build it up, you can go get Gone Pick and Follow Tracks. You can go get Star-Studded Sagittar, and if you ever get to attack with Builder enough, there is the hypothetical of getting to get Storm Scraper as well. And then, of course, Survivor's just a headache for control decks to punch through. I think it is going to be a headache for any deck to really punch through. Survivor's is just, I think, one of the strongest cards out of Clix of Nylon, and Stasis is really putting it through its paces here, as well as some of their other personal babies like Severance Sparkmind. Mana base is 7 fetches with 4 Primal Fissure and 3 redeveloped Cityscape, as well as 4 Nation Light Vein, 3 Silliman District, 8 fetches because we do have the 1 Warpray Rings instead of the 4th Cityscape because of Builder Monuments, and then 3 Forest, 3 Plains, and 2 Island. Sideboard is 2 Ifara Hero Maker, seems pretty good with the 15 non-creature enchantments plus 7 creature enchantments, as well as 1 Chosen of Heliod, 2 Warden of Skies, 1 Zakros Decree, 4 Harmony with Nature, 1 Disestablishmentarianism, 2 The Fall of Trax, and 2 Soul Guide Lantern. So good luck to Stasis up against this difficult control matchup to start off their Worlds run. I did not get to say, qualified from Grand Prix Bastion d'Orlais last November, I believe, with Extraction Mission in that tournament. And then this has really been Stasis's baby in the months since Extraction Mission got hit once again last year. Match number 7 is Lilosaur up against Caillou 102. Lilosaur here qualifying from the Cyberos League on a deck they're calling Last Call. This is sort of a shout out to a deck they used to play a lot heading into the Nylon season, and then early on in Nylon season, Wake Up Call. Was a 1-mana enchantment that could enchant an artifact and give it a mana ability to tap for mana of any color, and was used in conjunction with Laystone of Growth to just generate a lot of mana and just vomit things out into play. Used 0-mana artifacts to get some additional value, and then Wake Up Call was completely redesigned into a new card and really killed this archetype for a while, but Lit is trying to give it one last ride with the Last Call. So we have 2 copies of Tough Nut, 4 Lost Resistor, 2 Korgan Bourgeoisie, 1 Menelea Beloved Lyrist, 3 Wayward Drek, 1 EAG Resplendent Idol, and 2 The Berry Master, as well as 3 Deadly Dispute, 4 Embrace the Unnatural, 4 Laystone of Growth, 3 Plush Collection, 1 Stella's Journal, 2 Imposing Oddity, 4 Root Fossil, and 4 Plasma Armory. Now, as I understand it, a lot of these cheaper artifacts are here to kind of get some value off of Laystone of Growth, hopefully trying to get like one of these 0-mana artifacts, Journal, or Imposing Oddity into play alongside a Laystone of Growth to let the Laystone turn that into a Mana Rock. Kind of just letting Laystone make a Moxen is pretty effective. And then otherwise, Laystone is just kind of here to untap your Tough Nuts, or untap some of your creatures as they attack turn after turn. Plush Collection can copy up your Tough Nuts, copy up your Lost Resistors when you Cyber Soul them. Same with with Wayward Drek. Does the Menelea thing we talked about before. Can even copy up Berry Master, and if you're making Berry Master tokens, that can get out of hand really rapidly. Embrace the Unnatural for a massive burst of card advantage, thanks to this being an Abzan plus colorless strategy. Laystone of Growth can help make that mana as well, because the growth counter it places gives the mana ability to add 1 mana of any type. Lots of just like kind of funky little things going on here that are really neat. And you've got, of course, old reliables like Root Fossil in here to kind of just help things run a bit smoother. Land is a 20 land count with 4 Pulsing Sound Sea, another thing that's really beneficial with Laystone of Growth, because you can just untap it and then get 2 mana of any type by casting 2 spells in your turn, and then casting a 3rd spell off of the Pulsing Sound Seas untapped. And then if you can attack with 3 creatures, you get to untap Pulsing Sound Sea twice in a turn. Can really cause it to make a lot of mana. 1 copy of Neostelia, to kind of anthem a bunch of your tokens off of Wayward Drek, or off of Lost Resistor. 2 copies of Coalesced Mesa, 3 Coalesced Cliff, 2 Coalesced Core, 3 Primal Fissure, 2 Swamp, 2 Forest, and 1 Plains. Sideboard here is 2 Korgan Bourgeoisie, 1 Looming Psyhawk, 4 Hungry Blob, 2 Ziv Replis Sparked, 3 Taste for Malice, and 3 Forget Their Names. Um, I'm not sure how well this is going to perform because this does seem like a very spicy pile, but Lit is known for building these spicy piles and then performing very well with these spicy piles. So, uh, you know, say it with me now. Very excited to see how this one performs. Uh, and they're up against Caillou 102, also on a white-blue control deck. This is the kind of strategy that Caillou won Worlds 2024 with this Benthelos enchantment control strategy, but is squeezing colorless in here to try and get some value out of Ziv Replus Sparked in place of illustrious Sheng Fa. Kind of moving away from the direction that Zangi has pursued with the heavy white build for Fall of Tracks, or not Fall of Tracks. I'm just going to open their other deck list real quick. Fall of Elantian. I was right with the fall, wrong with the city. Um, moving towards trying to have a more distributed mana base to try and make Ziv Replo Sparked a core part of this strategy. So for Benthelos, for Ziv, backed up by 2 Tyranny of Tracks, 4 Seafloor Treasures, 1 Refract, and 4 Ifara's Judgment, 4 full copies of Bring the House Down, full playset, and then enchantments of Seal Away, Omen of Deception, and Gone Pickin', the reliables there. 25 lands here with 2 islands, 2 plains, 3 wastes, full 8 fetches between the cityscapes and primal fissures, 4 copies of Hundred Handed Pillars, 2 Temple of Origins, and 2 each of Coalesced Glacier and Coalesced Mesa. Sideboard is 4 Dormant Monstrosities, particularly interesting include here. 2 Tyranny of Tracks, 2 Walk the Dead's Path, 2 Divine Mishap, 1 Chromatic Rift to back up the Bring the House Downs, 2 Fall of Tracks, and 2 Soul Guide Lantern. Caillou, it's easy to root for Caillou, especially when they're entering this tournament as our 2024 world champion. And especially when they're trying to do something interesting here that we haven't really seen people try, of taking the white-blue control shell and putting in what I would contend is probably one of our best planeswalkers in the field right now. Ziv does have that massive deck-building cost of caring about colorless mana, but if you can make that work, Ziv is such a potent tool for shredding apart your opponent's hand and graveyard, being able to apply pressure with their +1, or just picking off any permanent that is a problem to you. Even potentially just picking off lands if you want to. So, not to be too much of a broken record, but excited to see how it performs. And then final match here is PTM versus Split Moon. PTM qualifying from Grand Prix Scophos as the runner-up to Split Moon in that GP, I believe. After Split Moon had qualified in Grand Prix Radaren. So kind of an interesting way for them to start their tournament here as this matchup. With PTM playing Jund Ramp, they have been the major innovator of the red splash into the black-green ramp strategy and pushing it more towards caring more heavily about red through Speculative Stockbroker, Sunsoaker, Istrathian Gentrifiers, and then an even split of Skotha and Warden of Tremors. 2 copies of Terminal Impact in the main, 4 Abominable Avalanche, 3 Chronicle of Extinction, 3 Crumbling Tower, 4 Root Fossil, and 4 Cryptolabe, as well as 24 lands with 3 Primal Fissure, 2 Cityscape, 6 Forest, 4 Swamp, 3 Mountain, 1 Looming Skyscrapers, which we've talked about the value of getting skyscrapers before, 1 Vishanti District, 2 Nessian Woods, 1 Temple of Malady, and 1 Nation Lightbane, for a pretty complex mana base here. And then moving on to the sideboard, we have 1 Hungry Blob, 2 Jack Monster Mentor, 4 Liquidate, 3 Dissect Intel, 1 Chronicle of Extinction, 1 Crumbling Tower, and 3 A God Divided. This is a deck that PTM has really been putting through the ringer. I'm a little surprised by only the 2 Terminal Impacts. It is just such a great way to expend all of this excess mana. It's not great with Warden of Tremors because the cost reduction from Warden doesn't work with Terminal Impact's X cost. It cares about the mana spent to cast it, not what its X cost was. But otherwise, Warden does do a lot with this deck. Lets you cast Istrathian Gentrifiers for 1, Sunsoaker or Stockbroker for free, cast Avalanche for 1, Chronicle of Extinction for black, Crumbling Tower for 1, Cryptolabe for 1, and then blue-green hybrid. Lots to love about the base way that this shell is set up here. And I'm I'm particularly keen on seeing how PTM performs here. One of the other fun things about PTM with the Worlds Legacy is that PTM was our runner-up in Worlds 2023, the winner of the upper bracket, but unfortunately lost 2 matches in a row to our 2023 World Champion Purple Murasaki. So, best of luck to PTM as with all of our players as they match up into Split Moon, who is, of course, on a white-black integrate deck. You know it, you love it. Or not PTM. Split Moon is just always going to try and bring these integrate decks if they can, and who can blame them? Data Weaver is just such a house of a card still. Just generating so much card advantage, really shredding into your opponent's resources. Contest Coordinator, really good with fetching all of these, valuable activated ability cards, like Sanido, like Illustrious Shengfa, like Laystone of Being, which is a fun new include here, or like Ominous Slaughter. Can also get Malicious Skycleaver, which is just a nasty top end to be bringing down and clearing away these more aggressive boards for a bit of life cost. And then just kind of beating in the air until you can afford to Cyber Soul it potentially for a 7/7 flyer with Trample and Lifelink and Ward pay 7 life. Force Sanido is flanked by 2 Shengfa here. We also have the full 4 Dissect Intel in the main, full 4 Bring the House Down in the main, and then I mentioned the Laystone of Being is a particularly fun include here. This is something that can just come down turn 1, gain you 1 life, and then make a 1/1, just to kind of gum up the board early on. And then this kind of gets to do some nice synergy things where you can cycle it and then bring it back with Illustrious Shengfa for -1 to immediately get the card draw off of Laystone and then put it into play to get that avatar token and then potentially get a decent stat bomb. It's findable again off of Contest Coordinator, which is also very relevant, and it can just buy you some time against these more aggressive strategies, especially as you're trying to run them out of resources, run them out of creatures on board, and of course you can also chunk a bunch of life into Malicious Skycleaver, then discard a card to Laystone of Being, and make a massive avatar as you just have very little life, and you're kind of living dangerously there, trying to just kill your opponent quickly. Earthly Penchants, just such a headache of a card if you can't deal with it quickly. This is very rapidly going to become a 1-mana Phyrexian Arena if left unchecked. Very good at integrating your opponent's cards and just kind of running them out of the things in their deck that they care about, while also generating more card advantage for their Data Weaver. And just kind of getting to eventually run away and draw a bunch of cards, lose a bunch of life. That can be mitigated, that life loss, with the Laystone of Being as well. And of course, Ominous Slaughter, we've seen a lot of in these decks so far, and is just very solid. 4 Temple of Origins, 2 Gates to the Underworld, and 9 of each Plains and Swamp for their mana base. And the sideboard is 4 of Clay's Shield of Karda, very interesting inclusion here. Pretty good with Illustrious Shengfa and Sanido for transforming it into Clay's Melded Spark. Can ramp up your other Planeswalkers' loyalty really quickly. You can pick off non-land permanents if you can get enough loyalty on Clay's, and then can also just put a bunch of armies in play over time. And it's also just a 1-mana 2/1 that has some pretty relevant text if you can get other creatures in play. 2 more copies of Shengfa to round up the playset, as well as playsets of Forget Their Names and Chronicle of Extinction, and then the final copy of Ominous Slaughter in the sideboard as well. So that is the full suite for the Revolution World Championship 2025. Best of luck to all of our players. I know I said it a lot, but I'm really excited to see how every single deck performs in this tournament. Again, I do know how some of these matchups have already panned out, but all of that said, I'm so eager to see how the rest of the tournament shapes up. We've got the double elimination challenge here with, we've got the upper bracket, the bottom bracket. As things move on, we're going to get a clearer picture of who is succeeding and what matchups are really going to be struggling. Some of these decks seem really out there and really spicy, but being entirely honest, all of these do seem capable of competing and holding up to the competition in their own ways. So I'm very, very curious to see who's going to come out on top here. We've got some really remarkable players and some really remarkable decks in the field. As always, if you want to follow along with this tournament, once again, those links to those 3 competitors are in the description below. Check out their YouTube channels, give them a subscribe, and make sure that you are tuned in to any matches that they do get to upload. I will be covering the finals match on this channel when the time arises for us to do so. And if you want to see how those matches shake up, the tournament bracket is in the description below, as well as the link to the Discord, so you can follow along with the news of the matchups as they shape up. And you can potentially even get to check out them posting the replays of their matches if you just want to watch the play-by-plays on your own. So with all of that said, I'm really eager to dive into this tournament. I'm really eager to dive into the Grand Prix Plane Chase tournament running concurrently. We'll have my deck tech up within the next day or so about that tournament as well. So lots to be excited about. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you in the Revolution chat.